Hello, and welcome to the Table and Well podcast. I'm Tennison.
And I'm Ginelle. Thank you for joining us as we discuss topics and give practical tools that help you live, grow, and be in healthy, joy-filled relationship with God, yourself, and others.
For more information and resources, or if you're looking for coaching, connection, and community, please visit tableandwellco.com. We hope you enjoy this podcast. Well, hello, and welcome to the Table and Well podcast. We are really excited you guys are here with us today, and we are continuing our series on stories from the table. And we're really excited because we've got two friends here with us today. We have Maranda and we have Darryl, and they've both been to our table, and we're excited to hear their stories. But first, I know, Ginelle, I thought we were reading this book that we talked about in our last podcast.
Yes.
And we ended our last podcast with a quote from that book, and I think it'd be really neat to start this one with another quote from there.
Yes, let's set the table. So to come to the table is to discover who God is and who we are. One of the hardest things in life is to wear your own skin. From day one, we're programmed for more repetition than disclosure, or for imitation of what we see rather than revelation of who we are.
That's really good. Yes. So I actually want to have a question about that. But before we jump into that, I would love for our friends to just tell us a little bit about you, where you're from, maybe how you found the table.
Yeah,
that would be an interesting way to do that. And then we'll circle back around. So Miranda, we'll start with you.
So I'm from Hendersonville, originally North Carolina.
Okay.
I went to Clemson though and ended up in Travelers Rest right after I graduated. I've been there 7 years now, and I work at the farmers market there. I found the table though through the labs, the co-labs.
Yeah.
And so I started with that. So that was my introduction to the structure. And then it was fun to see it live action at your house.
Yeah. That's fun. That's fun. Yeah, that's right. Because you were in a group with people from North Carolina, Chicago.
Right.
Yeah.
And before that, I was the only, I think there was only two of us in the U.S.
Yeah.
Which was super fun. It was people from all around the world. So yeah, and then it got really localized. So I was like, well, I can literally go see them.
That's cool.
In the flesh. So yeah. Really fun.
Really fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Darryl, how about you?
So I'm from South Africa, and heard of you guys and Table Well through my daughter Deanne, who was connecting with you guys. Mm-hmm. And so when I got here, July of this year, came down and have enjoyed it ever since. So that's how I got connected. Through Deanne.
Yeah.
And now you're living here locally.
I am,
yes,
living in Travelers Rest.
Really?
Yes.
We're going to be neighbors.
We are.
I love Deanne. She was in my lab. So
that's okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
I already know you.
So moved to Travelers Rest, and that's where I'll be living going forward. So
Awesome. I love that.
So what was your question?
Yeah, my question is, I wonder, I don't know if you might need to read it again, but I wonder, how does that sit with you? Just kind of that.
Would you like me to read it again?
I think I will.
Yeah, I would just, because, I would just like to hear, just like how that resonates, how that sits with you. Yeah.
Okay. So to come to the table is to discover who God is and who we are. One of the hardest things in life is to wear your own skin. From day one, we're programmed for more repetition than disclosure, or for imitation of what we see rather than revelation of who we are.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
It's powerful. Yeah, I think as I've got older, kind of got past the, I suppose, the facade, not the facade that I was trying to pretend, but you're living life, and you just, I don't know how to best express it, but I think as life happens is that we are forced to discover ourselves, and I think for me, the table has been a place that has facilitated that, just to help me help me look inside and get connected with this person that I've been hanging around with for a very long time. Is actually to connect with myself.
Yeah.
And that has been, that's been very helpful.
Yeah.
Very helpful. Yeah.
Wow.
So good.
That's really
That piece
huge.
about the repetition line really similar to what Darryl was saying of, I think autopilot is just our default for whether you don't know yourself or you're just tired.
Yeah.
So you repeat rather than like responding or knowing. And so I think like what you're saying, it's a pause to, like, because someone asked you're like, oh, I honestly haven't thought about how I am in a while. So
Right.
yeah,
It's
like
so true.
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
really, it seems simple.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
When you say it, but
yeah,
it's really,
it's profound.
yes,
Mhm.
It is
is.
profound. Yeah.
We were talking about that on the last podcast. We recorded about appreciation and just about the question of where have you seen the goodness of the Lord.
Mm.
The same thing of like we can live weeks and days and months and years not even paying attention
Yeah.
to where His goodness is, and then just stop and reflect and be reminded both in ourselves and in our lives of like, oh, He was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And oh wow, I see Him in your life. How
Yeah.
powerful that is.
Yeah.
And then from the check-in aspect of
Mhm.
wow, I don't know how I am. I don't know the last time I asked myself that or even paid attention to how I really am or
Yeah.
even had a place to say that out loud.
Yeah. I think as I was thinking about today was the word that I got is connect. You know, the table provides a place to connect, obviously, with people because of the way the way it is. It's facilitated. But then for me was to actually connect with what we're just talking about is myself. How am I doing? You know, that check-in is, all right, how is Darryl doing? You know, I'm feeling stuff, I'm carrying stuff, but how do I actually take the time and connect with that so that I can process that with the Lord, you know, and with friends around the table. Yeah. So for me, it's just been a place to connect. And then, of course, you know, with after the table time is just the time of worship and stuff. Just connect with the Lord. So, you know, I'm connecting with people. I'm connecting with my inner self. I'm connecting with the Lord. I'm connecting with gratitude, which is a really important part of our journey. So, yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah. So I wonder, Darryl, how has that living more aware, connected, like how have you seen maybe some of the changes in your own personal life, being able to be more connected with yourself?
Yeah. I think, you know, men are not meant to have emotions, but
Yeah.
So they say.
We
So they
do
say.
have them.
We do.
Yes.
We do have them. And, you know, I think it's given me a tool to be able to not just feel, but to be able to identify the feelings and then to be able to process those feelings in a healthy way.
Yeah.
And not just feel them and react to those feelings, but to be able to say, okay, this is what I'm feeling, and that's okay. It's an emotion.
Yeah.
It's talking to me. It's saying, you've got this going on inside of you. Instead of that just being, you know, if it's anger just coming out in a relationship, is be able to go in, process it, deal with it, and you know, hopefully from that point be a better person to those around you. You know, instead of just all over them. I've actually been able to work through it. So particularly some of those tough emotions. You know,
It's really good. It's really good.
How about for you, just even that same question?
Yeah. I really, you're talking like the male context, but I relate to that as well, honestly. I think the idea of someone told me, like, we're going to sit at the table and I'll talk about our emotions. It's sort of like, that sounds like that could go really badly. You know, like, this is a Pandora's box. Like, are we sure we want to breach that? How is it going to go? So I think just seeing it, like, trying it out, going into the dark woods of this scenario, and even just like the structures of check-in and gratitude, give it enough structure to feel sort of safe. Or like, 'cause every time we do it, I know I've done it so many times, and I'm always like, going in, going in again. But it's always so good, and it's the like seeing other people express empathy, or see like hearing their stories, and like we're meant to glean from everyone's context, not just our own little vacuum. So I think even just the skills that y'all have extended and offered with the check-ins of, I love the options of like, first of all, knowing what you need. So it kind of gives like that responsibility of like, I don't know. I need to know the answer to that question. But number two, we don't have to have a solution. If someone has something that seems really hard or heavy, like creating that space, like we'll just sit. We're here for that.
Yeah.
Or we'll like listen and have faith that we'll hear something too. Something I'm like, what if we go in and it's silent? It's all exercise of faith every time.
I didn't know you were feeling that.
Oh yeah, that was the full check-in before the check-in.
I love it.
Checking with myself to see what's happening, and then okay, here we go.
That's really good. So referring back to what you were talking about knowing what you need. So when someone checks in heavy, we haven't really talked about this on the podcast or even this part of the rhythm, but we'll ask, what do you need? And we have a high value at the table for not assuming that we know what you need, or even acting like we do. So often, as humans, we're like, oh, those feelings make me really uncomfortable. So can I make that stop by trying to solve your problem? And we become these attempted problem solvers, which we can't anyway, you know, which then just creates pain for us and the person that we're trying to help fix the problem with, when really, as Jesus showed us, it's the practice of presence. Like he could fix anything, and he didn't. A lot of times he just showed up and was present and stayed with people.
It was that. So how has that been different from maybe any other experiences maybe you guys have had with either friends or in church settings or other gathering settings where someone presents with something, whatever it might be, something heavy, and you know there's this reaction of we have to try to fix it because either it makes us uncomfortable or we feel like we have to because it's the right quote unquote thing to do.
And a lot of times it's even out of good intention.
It
like
really
we
is.
really
Yeah,
do
very much.
care,
We care.
but we don't know any other way to help than to try to fix.
So how has that experience been different from what you've experienced at the table as opposed to what you've maybe experienced in other scenarios or other settings? So either one of you guys can.
I do. I mean, I think after I lost my wife is the most annoying thing, and to the point where I wrote a very, which I probably would like to retract, Facebook statement was people either want to fix you or, and again, good intentions, not that people are bad, but they want to fix you or they want to minimize. That's been my experience. They want to spiritualize or and I think what I've got from the table is both the check-in and then the 5 sort of responses is the tools to be able to avoid that. Because as I said, I wrote this very, not rude, but just, hey, get off my case, get out of my face. Don't give me advice. Don't try and fix me. Just be present with me. Just come and sit, mourn with me because I'm mourning, you know. And I think most people don't know what to do. We don't have tools of how to be with somebody when they're struggling or when they're in difficulty. So I think, you know, that check-in and then those 5 responses. What do you need me to be? You know, do you need me to find you a counselor, or you just need me to sit here with you? You know, whatever on that spectrum of responses. You know,
It's such a great example because our hearts are breaking. And we see the pain in other people. And then we want to help, but we end up increasing pain when we don't have the tools of how to show up. And that could be anywhere from other people, other adults, or even our own kids. Like, we don't always have the skills either to even just show up for our kids, and they're little tiny feelings, right? And that's part of what we teach too outside of this, is just that, like, when we don't have people showing us up for us and our hard feelings, we lose that modeling and that learning of how do I show up in other people's hard feelings. And we also lose the ability to show up for our own hard feelings. You know, like you're talking about, like, well, how do I feel? Well, I don't ask myself, because that's scary. Scary room, right? Like, that's going into the dark, even in my own heart, for me to know how to show up for me. And even how to ask myself, what do I need right now? Even if I'm not at a table of people, but somehow sitting at that table of people when we're all sharing and we're all asking and we're all showing up, like that, I believe builds the courage in us to do that for ourselves, even outside of here, and to do it for others outside of here.
So good. It's really good.
So, curious question for you guys, and you can answer it in whichever order, but if from the phrase, to me the table is, how would you answer that? Or the table has been, even?
Miranda.
Yes, you're right.
I put down you, thank
I
you.
took the last
Appreciate
this one's
really came in clutch for me. I appreciate it. I told you I was going to do that.
I love it.
I went through a couple words, and I was thinking about this, reflecting on it before, but I think what I came to was but the table is unhurried, and simultaneously the table is human. Because, like I just described, obviously emotions are a big scary dark wood, and what we're doing here though is very kind of elementary, even though it's new for pretty much everyone here. We encounter each other here through our stories. So we have to wait. We have to listen. It comes in like drips and sips instead of like this idea, I think, that we carry because of technology in this age. But like, I think we can just like download something. And people just don't work that way. It's a little bit over a long amount of time. It's building trust. It's not being able to fix it, I think, is we're just going to sit here in it, and no one knows exactly where it's going to go, you know? And so I think the family unit is something that is starved and missing. I know there's so many, I read something about the stats of single domicile living is the highest it's ever been in history. And so many people don't even have a table outside of this. I'm saying, like, my busy life, like, I have a roommate, but like, we like stand up in the kitchen, eat real quick, go on to the next thing. So just learning to even have a meal with other people, I think, is a very profoundly human thing that doesn't happen. And like, that's Jesus's ministry, was just like walking and eating with people all the time, you know? I love it when he like comes back and he like makes them breakfast on the beach. That's just so wholesome cool. and grounding. Because he knew, it's like, there's some very huge spiritual truths that are real and you're trying to absorb and learn. And we're also going to have breakfast, you know? Like, and I feel like that's what happens at the table. Of we're tackling big emotions, we're tackling that we get to communicate and listen to like the living God on behalf of each other. And we also just like are having some toast because we're still in skin. And we still got to keep doing our Tuesdays and trying to figure out how to be both at the same time. It's difficult to say the least.
I love that.
You said that so well.
So good,
That's so well.
It is profound the way that it is patience. It is a practice of patience because it is allowing time and space for everyone's story to be told and heard, right? And staying attuned to that and not being rushed through of like, oh, I'm going to tell my story and then I'm out. Or even out of your response to it, but actually even trusting that you can show up for my story and that you're actually here listening to me. I think that's probably one of the more profound parts is that everybody shows up week after week to listen to one another as much as they do to share what's on their heart. And that is really powerful.
Well, I think even just because of the nature of how the table is arranged and how we do go through the rounds, you actually spend more time listening than you do actually talking. You spend more time listening to stories, listening to Jesus or God, if that's one of those options that people ask for when somebody checks in heavy. It's a lot more listening and attuning to each other and to yourself than it is actually you speaking words out of your mouth.
That's good.
And so it really is a practice in all of patience, presence, attunement. It's all of those things that are happening. Never even really thought about that till this moment, but it is that, like you said, Miranda, unhurried, because it is very unhurried. It's not, we don't blow through things, we don't blow over things. It's like we, if there's something that needs to be addressed or something that needs to be highlighted, and we need to, and the Lord's asking us, or you're asking us for something, we do that.
Yeah. And there's not this like, oh, we've got to go, like this is an in and out thing. We sit at the table for a good 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And people have learned to just sit.
Yeah.
Even when it's over, most people are like,
need a deep breath.
And it's not even like, okay, that was, we got through that. It's like this beautiful, like, we could sit here longer if we wanted to or needed to. Nobody's ever said like, wow, could this just be over with already? Which meals are like that, right? Or even churches like that, where we're like, okay, how long is that guy going to talk? It's just been beautiful to watch people just sit and give each other the gift of time too, which is European culture all the way, where meals are not, like 30 minutes and done. How can we cook something in 10 minutes or less, 15 minutes or less, and then eat it in about the same amount of time?
Yeah. It is. It's an event.
It is an event.
The meals are an event for multiple reasons in the European culture, but for this,
and it is nice. I didn't really think about that, of the table being powerful in that way of, if you don't have a table 7 other days of the week, like you have one here,
You've been listening to the Table and Well podcast. New episodes stream every Tuesday. To begin your journey to relational health, go to tableandwellco.com/community101. Again, that's tableandwellco.com/community101.